You're probably sick of hearing this, but Governor Dayton kept his promise Wednesday and wiped out nearly all of the work Republican-led legislature completed in the just-ended 2018 session.
I do want to make it
That's a really responsible lead paragraph from Christopher Megan at the St. Paul Pioneer Press.
I want to make it clear that 100% of our poll participants got that one right.
That is correct.
Yes.
We did ask what the governor would do with the bills, and everyone said that he'd veto it. Now, that was the only option.
Yeah.
But still,
well, no, there were two options. He would either veto it,
right,
or he would veto it.
And he vetoed it.
Yeah.
Well, when you say he fulfilled his promise, I thought you were going to say he cleaned his room.
Now, you don't get a dilly bar until you eat all your vegetables,
Marky.
Dayton vetoed a $131 million supplemental spending bill that stretched nearly 1,000 pages long and included some of his biggest priorities, even after Republicans modify it, removing dozens of objectionable provisions like spending cuts and shifts and policy language the governor found objectionable. He still vetoed it. He also vetoed a tax bill that would have aligned Minnesota's tax code with recent federal changes to avoid filers having to pay more and complicating their returns. It was the second time he vetoed that proposal, which he described as a giveaway to corporations, and the rich. Even though the brackets for the rich do not get changed, they are the same as always. Corporate taxes actually go up, as Senator Gazelka just said. They do not go down; they go up. And the only tax cuts that are done in the tax conformity bill are for the lowest two brackets for the poor and working families. I don't understand what Governor Dayton is talking about.
I have a stupid question.
And do you know that the lowest tax bracket in the state of Minnesota is higher than the highest tax bracket in the state of Illinois?
Whoa.
Wow.
That's nuts.
Now that's a factoid.
Yes.
So
You have a stupid question?
I had asked Senator Gazelka yesterday, as we just heard, about, do we think Mark Dayton will get pressured into
Tom Bach
making a special session?
Tom Bach threw out the idea that that they may have a special session in November after the election to figure out tax conformity.
So what you're saying is the politics that the governor was smelling wasn't his own BO. It was actually
his own
party's BO. Okay, I gotcha.
So, well, here's where the stupid question comes into play. Let's just say Mark Dayton calls a special session.
Okay.
If he does that, the legislature can go and try to veto override it, I would assume.
Yeah.
Or is there a certain time frame where they can no longer do that?
No. I mean, I don't believe that there's a time frame.
Because I think if there was a time frame, he calls it after that time frame is up.
I don't believe there's a time frame for when you can try to override a veto.
Okay.
They've attempted this, and Democrats have remained solid. Maybe after the election, Democrats won't be as interested in doing the political thing, and would rather just do the same thing for tax filers in Minnesota.
Well, that bill passed with a supermajority, right?
Yes, but when they tried to, every time they tried to undo the governor's veto, Democrats switched back to the governor's side, and now Democrats get to say, "Well, I was on both sides of it."
And there is a practical limit to changing the rules for the tax filing. The Minnesota Department of Revenue will be producing the instructions and the rules and the forms over the summer. I've heard them say that the first week of the January session is far too late, and I am worried that November is also far too late to make the necessary changes for the 2018 tax filing session.
Well, and even if it wasn't, it's going to be...
that it will cost $7 million for the Revenue Department to make these changes. Yeah.
Well, who needs $7 million?
Right.
Whatever.
Apparently
chump change.
Apparently, call center Minlars could use $7 million. I'm just saying.
Right.
Yeah. So
could the deputy registrars.
Yes, they could.
I'd take it. I mean, I could use $7 million.
Maybe.
So, okay. I have been stewing over this all yesterday because Governor Dayton held a press conference yesterday where I swear to God, I don't understand where he's coming from. He describes the legislature this past session as the messiest, sloppiest session he's ever seen. I honestly don't know how closely he pays attention, though, because just in this past 2 years, we've had a Minlar scandal, we've had a senior care scandal, we've had Minsure scandals, we've had Minnesota sports facility scandals, we've had child care fraud scandals after scandals after scandals, all happening in the governor's department, and he wasn't paying attention to that. And he didn't describe that as the sloppiest. But the Republicans actually get their work done. Actually get him bills, let him veto it, revise those bills, get it to him again well in advance of the midnight deadline. And how is that the sloppiest thing you've ever seen? Governor Dayton is a hypocrite because he can't see that his own administration is the most corrupt, inept, malfeasant gubernatorial or executive branch I've ever seen in my lifetime, probably in Minnesota history. And this is, talking about back when St. Paul used to have mobsters in it. Governor Dayton is the one who is the worst at this, who is the sloppiest at this, who is the one creating the chaos. And it drives me insane. And this idea that, it's the sky is not falling was his quote. The sky is not falling. Well, how about you tell that to the deputy registrar running a licensing office in northern Minnesota, who is now bankrupt because he can't make up the extra hours trying to figure out all the paperwork. He's lost his business. His family has to figure out what to do. His life is his or her life is completely ruined. For those people, the sky is falling. The people on opioids who are the opioid crisis getting worse and worse and worse. For them, the sky is falling, and the governor did nothing. For the elderly who are suffering abuse in old folks' homes and in care centers, and all of their complaints go ignored for years and years, and finally the legislature brings some reforms to fix what was happening in the administrative branch's problem, and the governor does nothing. To those people, to the seniors, yes, the sky is falling. You have schools. The governor said 2 weeks ago he needed emergency funding for schools. Now he says the sky isn't falling? Which is it, Governor? We have an emergency in the schools and they need $139 million, or the sky isn't falling. He's a hypocrite when it comes to that, plus the fact that these bills open up more than nearly $250 million extra money for schools in the bills that he vetoed. For the schools that are desperate for this money, their sky is falling. You've got all these people waiting in line for Minlars. You've got $100 million just disappearing in the child care fraud. You've got $30 million disappearing from the Department of Health. You've got money missing everywhere. You've got millions of Minnesotans that are going to be filing tax returns and having to spend hundreds of extra dollars and hours of extra time to conform so that they can conform to federal standards when Governor Dayton couldn't be bothered. Governor Dayton has never filled out a tax form in his life. How would he know the pain that Minnesota families go through filling out a tax form? For those people, yes, the sky is falling, Governor. I am sick and tired of Governor Dayton, who has never worked a day in his life and who's never had to put actual effort into anything. He didn't put any effort into negotiation. He didn't put any effort into trying to come to a compromise with Republicans. He was dictatorial. It was 201 of the legislators, and they all do what I want to do. For Governor Dayton, it's a government of one, and it's him. And he ignores everything that's happening in his own office, no matter who dies or who gets hurt, whether it be seniors, whether it be kids. And he'll gladly use these people as props. He'll gladly veto one of the bills in front of students because, you didn't get the education money, and now, well, I guess you're not getting any education money, but he'll gladly use the kids as props. He doesn't actually care about if they get the thing because, well, your sky isn't falling. Well, their sky is falling.
Well, how do you really feel about this, Ben?
And so Governor Dayton, I am counting to days till he is out of office because he has been an absolute embarrassment. Governor Dayton, this is your legacy. You have destroyed people's lives. You have irrevocably harmed your office, your administration has irrevocably harmed people's lives, maybe even led to people dying with the senior care abuse. And your answer to all of it is, the sky isn't falling? F you, Governor Dayton.
What I found interesting, especially since he said this was the messiest that he has seen in his press conference, I did have to laugh. Someone had asked him something along the lines of, well, what, specifically didn't you like about what was in the bill? And he said he had all of these reasons why he couldn't sign these bills. He came up with two reasons. And then he looked confused.
And then admitted, I can't remember any of them.
I'd have to look at it.
But they were so objectionable. How can you not remember?
His comment about being messy, he may have actually just been having a flashback to the day before during the finger painting before his previous press conference about vetoing the school funding bill.
Maybe.
And just remember, this is not something new for the governor. Back in the 2011 shutdown, of which I was out of work for 3 weeks, and most of the state employees were out of work for 3 weeks, he eventually signed the exact same proposal that was on the table the 30th of June.
Yeah.
It was for nothing.
Governor Dayton, when he was a senator, when he was a U.S. senator, gave himself an F. He graded himself an F as a U.S. senator.
Why would you do that?
Exactly.
Seems like bad PR.
When Governor Dayton, in his 8 years as governor, has shown us truly what failure truly represents, he needs to go back and give himself a different grade in the U.S. Senate. Because him in the U.S. Senate doing nothing was nothing compared to the absolute dreadful failure of his administration.
Traffic flow on roads also get letter grades, but when it gets bad enough, it is F minus.
F minus.
F minus. And some people might listen or hear that and go, well, certainly Illinois, their governors are worse. You know what? I give credit.
Sorry, I accidentally bumped the mixer and everyone's louder than normal.
Oh. So you know what I actually give credit to Illinois for? They hold their politicians accountable. And Rod whatever the heck, Gaboyevich. I don't know if you have to bleep that. He's in jail.
Yes.
He went to jail. Dayton, maybe he needs to go to jail.
The governor of New Jersey changes lanes on a freeway, and people are demanding that he resign. Governor Dayton, his administration,
kills people,
ignores
allegedly.
The pleas of the elderly and the infirmed and our veterans. Veterans in northern Minnesota who are desperate to seek care. Republicans wanted to build 3 new veterans care facilities in
outstate
Minnesota. And Governor Dayton says, screw you, veterans. The sky isn't falling. You don't get anything, veterans.
Nothing.
How is no one calling for Governor Dayton to resign after constant I'm sorry, Cat Lady's filming me, and it's causing me to
this is
get
a good
distracted.
One. Keep filming.
Governor Dayton, nothing but scandal after scandal after scandal, and when it comes to negotiating with the legislator, nothing but obfuscation and lies and backstabbing in politics. He's the intransigent one. He loves using that word, intransigence.
I'm surprised he can pronounce it.
Everything he says, he is merely projecting. Everything he says that he hates about Republicans in the legislature is something that actually describes himself. He's a hypocrite. He's nothing but a politician, and I cannot wait for him to leave office.
I think that would be an awesome Up and Adam fan event, is his last day, his last night in office.
Our only hope,
invite him along,
is that Governor Dayton does not fulfill his term and Michelle Fischbach becomes governor, and minutes after taking the oath of office, calls a special session.
Here is the definition of intransigence, Governor Dayton. refusal to change one's views or to agree about something. Last I checked, the legislature passed bipartisan bills, vastly bipartisan bills, with a lot of Democratic support. There is no way in hell you can describe what the legislature passed in the last 2 weeks as intransigence. But you, taking 3 days, you were in Washington, D.C., you just got back. You didn't even talk to the legislators. You didn't even talk to Gazelka. Instead of taking a couple of days to figure it out, or listening to Minnesotans who are calling the governor's office demanding that you sign these bills to not put Minnesotans through the pain that you were about to put them through, you decide that the sky isn't falling, that you're not going to change your mind, that you're not going to agree to something. You are the intransigent one. And Governor Dayton, that's his favorite word, intransigence, because it's him. That's him. He's unable to change his mind. He's unable to agree because he thinks he's king. Because he was a baby born with from a baby he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth.
And he got a monkey.
He
couldn't be trusted.
He lost the monkey.
Yeah, he lost the monkey
because his daddy owned a department store. Why are we if we hate the rich so much? Why are we electing these rich babies to the gubernatorial office? This man has never done anything in his life.
That's a fair point.
And he's never made an attempt to actually compromise on anything.
Deep breaths. You gonna make it?
Just very angry.
Very good, Ben Rant, but I have a feeling it was probably gonna go on
all
a couple
of our
more hours.
Listeners need to open their windows and shout at the top of their lungs, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore!"
I'm just saying, the governor said, "Oh, the Republicans only passed these bills in order so that they could use them as political fodder in the election." No, right. Governor, you saying the sky is not falling, that is what Republicans will be using.
I hope so.
You will be seeing television ads and campaign mailers and T-shirts with the governor's face saying the sky isn't falling. You're going to have conversations with elderly that have been abused and veterans and deputy registrars and people who have lost their jobs and children who are less safe in schools. You'll be able to interview these people and say, yes, for us, Governor, the sky is falling.
Well,
2 years ago, 2 years ago,
yeah,
2 years ago, the only scandal that was happening was Minnesotans were going to be forced to pay more for their health care premiums. And what happened?
People died.
A wave. People died, and then a wave of people voted for Republicans, so much so that the Republicans in the House had the biggest majority they've had in a long time, 77 Republicans in that chamber. And the Republicans won back control of the Senate.
Well,
if Republicans cannot take elderly abuse and the MNLARS and MNsure and Minnesota Sports Facilities Authority and child care fraud and turn all of that with the new tax forms having to be filled out, and your children are less safe in schools because the governor vetoed a bill that would have made schools safer. If schools are unable to have access to $250 million new dollars, all because the governor vetoed these bills. If the Republicans in this state can't use this the governor himself gave Republicans enough to run in the 2018 elections.
Yeah.
Republicans didn't need to write any of this legislation. They were trying to fix the problems that the governor's office created, the fix that the governor's administration created. If anything, they were making it easier for Democrats to run in 2018. But thank you, Governor Dayton, for vetoing these bills that would have fixed the problems you created, that your office created, that the people you appointed to your administration created. And because you didn't sign these bills, Republicans now have vast opportunities to run it, to say Democrats do not care about Minnesotans. Because Minnesotans, yes, our sky is falling.
And if I was a statewide candidate, I would run scary music. I would run.
Oh, you want the negative ad music?
Yeah. Governor Dayton, 3 days before his vetoes was in Washington, D.C. Who is he talking to? Gubernatorial candidate Tim Walz. Walz and Dayton veto machines. Am I wrong?
Everything sounds better with a reverb. I'm sorry, they're vacuuming upstairs.
It's the new hand dryer.
Make government better. Vote Republican this fall.
Yeah. It's this idea that Republicans are only writing this legislation to try to win votes. They're trying to fix the problems that exist because the governor's asleep at the friggin' wheel.
Probably would run better if it was asleep at the wheel.
I only wish.
Maybe.
All right, you ready to turn the page?
Are you ready to
that
turn
was
the
a
page?
big parcel in your news bag.
I've had all of this. I wasn't able to put it out in any logical form. It just had to come out in chunks.
Ben, I just want to say,
okay,
I have been listening to you since 2011, and I have to say this is the best Ben rant ever.
We need to
slow clap.
We got a slow clap going. Hold on, I gotta.
Okay, it's awkward now. Okay, now we stop. Yes. All right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And you too could have seen this on video if we hit $2,500 a month on the Patreon.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, Brad. So we are so close to hitting our Patreon goal for video in the studio.
Seriously?
We are very, very close. So thank you for those joining the Patreon movement.
Yes.
Keep doing so.
We have had a surge. A surge in the last 2 weeks of Patreon support. We've actually eclipsed the $2,000 a month barrier.
You're welcome.
And we have promised that if we get to $2,500, we will start working on getting a video version of the podcast for Patreon subscribers.
Yeah.
So that you can watch it as we're recording it.
I did record part of your rant, and it's on the Facebook page right now.
You posted it on Facebook already?
That's fast.
Tomorrow's preview. Yes.
Boom.
Sorry you don't get to be in the video, guys. Right?
That's all right.
So Kurt Doubt, in response to what the governor said, Kurt Doubt, the Speaker of the House, said, "I actually think there's no bill the governor would sign," referring to Dayton's broad opposition to Republican tax and spending proposals. "The session wasn't a failure. Our governor was a failure." Paul Gazelka said that the veto of these bills is bad for Minnesota. "I think we all need to learn to work better together." As for a possible special session, Governor Dayton said, "They had their chance. They messed this session up worse than any I've ever seen."
Oh, he's funny. He's so cute.
They took out 70% of the objectionable stuff, and instead of getting 70% and something, the governor wants 100% of nothing.
Yep.
So if he wants 100% of nothing, don't vote for a Democrat.
Yep.
That's Democrats, 100% of nothing.
Wow.
Oh my God, I can't believe this
another
is happening.
T-shirt.
I don't understand what's happening.
Mm-hmm.